Rage 2 is one of the strangest sequels I've ever played. Honestly, I'm still not sure why this game even exists. If I was told 5 years ago that Rage will receive a sequel, I wouldn't have believed this guy even if he was Jesus Christ himself. The first Rage was a good game, but it wasn't some big seller and didn't really look like a franchise maker. Bethesda is known for their weird business decisions, but even for them, Rage 2 announcement was something extraordinary, and it was not clear to the end what will come out of this. And after the game was released, it didn't become any less unclear. In reality, Rage 2 is an official Mad Max sequel, only in a different universe in the first-person perspective. It feels like almost 80% of gameplay is made by Mad Max template. There is open or post-apocalyptic world, few settlements and dozens of points of interest that are scattered around the map. There are upgradable car and skills that you can acquire. Honestly, such similarities are not something surprising, since one of the developers of Rage 2 is Avalanche Studios, the creators of Mad Max, but it's still funny to see how these games are literally the same in some aspects. There are even some landmarks that looks almost identical. The remaining 20% of gameplay formula was made by ID Software, the creators of the original Rage, and it includes shooting and the universe itself. As you may notice, that's some really uneven mix, and unfortunately it shows. The open world in Rage 2 is the weakest part of this game. It's beautiful, but it's completely useless and only hurts the game. I'm one of those players who love to just wander around virtual worlds and take pictures of beautiful scenery while casually clearing the map from those annoying icons somewhat in the background. But even I occasionally got bored while playing this game and literally forced myself to run through the final parts of the map. Yes, Rage 2 world is undoubtedly beautiful, but it doesn't feel alive. There is a lot of weird empty areas, and except the main storyline and clearing the outposts on the map, there is not much to do. Basically, there are two types of side activities. You either need to clear the open area or linear dungeon from the enemies, or you need to find a way into a locked building. After completing the task, you can waste your time and search for hidden chests and data pads, but it's a really tedious process. The repetitiveness of side activities could have not been a big problem, because shooting in Rage 2 is amazing. It shows that one of the developers were the creators of Doom. Gunplay in this game is a pure joy. Everything exploding and enemies are blowing up like a bloody fireworks. It's ridiculous, and that's why it's so fun. Not every available weapons and abilities are equally useful and fun to use, but even with the standard pistol, assault rifle, shotgun, rocket launcher set, combat never gets old, and it's the main reason to play Rage 2. I also like the music. Those electro-industrial tunes reminded me about Doom soundtrack, and it really adds to the game atmosphere. Rage 2 could have been great, if not the open world. It really affects the pacing, and most of the fights end way too soon. You can't just jump right back to the action because you need to round around the location you just cleared in order to find missing chests, and then you need to drive for around 5 minutes to the next outpost, and then repeat the whole process. Because of that, Rage 2 always leaving a slight feeling of frustration. Everything looks and plays cool, but it's just not enough. Instead of non-stop fun, you always have to be distracted with boring checklist activities, or you'll feel underpowered. The good storyline could have helped in improving the diversity of the gameplay, but unfortunately there is not much to talk about. Rage 2 starts pretty good, but again, because of the open world, the story is getting harmed by uneven pacing, especially if you'll decide to not go directly to the right place, but also clean some outposts on your way to the target. I honestly forgot about most of the storyline before I even finished the game, and remember the details only because of the comics that are shown in the final credits. There is no surprises, or at least some extraordinary moments. It all goes predictable and ends with typical boss fight. It's better than ending of the original Rage, but still very far from desirable. I prefer playing single-player games, but in the case of Rage 2, even I would agree that it could have used a co-op mode, even if it was limited to the arenas. Lack of some kind of online component is even more weird, considering that game is positioning itself as so-called live service, with weekly events and constant updates. And of course there are microtransactions, but they implemented in such strange way I didn't even know they exist in the game, until I came to the store page and saw some Rage 2 coins available for purchase. When I entered the game and looked closely at the main menu, I finally noticed store option, but after looking at this store contents, I haven't seen anything worth spending money on. It's just a bunch of cosmetics only skins, most of them are not even looking good. Well, it's not ultimately a bad thing though, because they don't affect the actual gameplay, but still, what's the point of adding this stuff at all? There is also DLCs planned to be released soon, with new missions, guns and map zones, but honestly I had more than enough after 30 hours I spent on the base game. Not sure how profitable all this stuff, but to developers' credit, at least they actually listened to the feedback and fixed some of the game issues with free updates, like chests are now highlighted in scanning mode so it's easier to find them, or you are not forced to look at experience screen each time you clear the outpost, which is slightly improved the pacing. Another example of the fact that the best way to play most of those modern AAA live services is 1 year later after the release date when all DLCs and patches were released. Since I haven't done a preview for this game, few last words about the quality of the PC version. Rage 2 has a nice set of options that you can tweak. In video settings, outside standard stuff like changing field of view and disabling some effects, you can adjust resolution scale and even set automatic scaling target FPS. Out of curiosity, I tried to play in 4K with everything maxed out on my GTX 1080 Ti, but as expected I couldn't reach even 60 FPS. And this game feels absolutely terrible to play at framerate below 16, so I had to lower down some settings and switch to 1440p. Thanks to wide variety of available graphics and scaling settings, reaching to 60 FPS should not be a big deal on less powerful hardware. Input and audio settings have a decent set of options as well, like aim down sight sensitivity for mouse and audio dynamic range. Regarding performance and overall stability, after 30 hours of playing I haven't encountered any major issues, except that one time when I decided to jump from the helicopter right onto goons' heads, but I slightly miscalculated the distance and died because I was too high. And at this moment game decided to make an autosave, so I stuck in the loop of dying like in Groundhog Day.
This is pitiful.
I somehow managed to get out without reloading the last save and losing my progress, but from my experience that flying vehicle causes more troubles than helps, and occasionally breaking some scripts if you'll decide to skip some parts of the outposts by flying instead of walking into them on foot. Looks like designers didn't plan well this feature. This vehicle really doesn't fit this game and feels like it was added in last minute just because it looked cool. In conclusion, here is my final verdict. Rage 2 is a good game, but it's not worth the full price. Wait for sale and price drops and only then go for it. For that money it will be a nice and fun experience for a week or two. Rage 2 is not trying to be a next big thing, it's more like AAA fast food that some people might enjoy occasionally consume between visits to rich restaurants, but you can easily skip it and won't miss anything important.